What's up? Bishop here, back with another upload. Today, I'm going to be talking about World War One. So, what is World War One? Well, it's the First World War, fought between 1914 and 1918. Now we're going to start off with how it started. So, there's this country called Serbia, and there was this really large country next to it called Austria. Now, Austria had some, land that Serbia wanted, because there were Serbians living there. And so, they funded a terrorist organization called the Black Hand to assassinate the Prince of Austria that was going to visit them. His name was Franz Ferdinand. He was the Archduke of the Air. He's going there to visit the Serbians, to try to show that the Austrians are, good people. He was the leader of the pro-Serbian movement in the Austrian court. Who he shows up, and he gets shot, and he gets killed. And the Serbian government is like, oops. And the Austrian emperor's like, really? You're going to do me like that? We're going to war. So he's like, we're going to war right now. Well, Russia's like, you can't do that. I'm allied to Serbia. We're going on you. And then Germany's like, hold up. We're Austria's allies. We have to go in on you. And then France is like, well, we're Russia's allies, so we're going in on you. And Germany's like, well, I'm not going in against your border. You got a bunch of forts there. I'm going to go through Belgium. And Britain goes, like, we're Belgium's allies, so now we're involved in this. And that's how the war started. So, at first everyone's like, it could be easy war, over, immediately. Germany's like, I'm going to invade France. Goes through Belgium. It works. They get almost to Paris, and they won a bunch of battles and forced the French and the British army to keep retreating until they get to the Marne, a river and a city near, right outside Paris, where the amazing French artillery, they had the best artillery in Europe at the time, managed to hold their ground, and they used their superior artillery and trenches they had built to fight off the Germans. And so now they're all over there in their trenches. Germans are like, well, what if they push against us? What are we going to do? Oh, we should dig a trench too. So they both dig trenches, and now they're both there in these supermassive fortifications across from each other, and no one can advance. And so it's literally the generals going, got this plan here. We use tanks, planes, mustard gas, lots of infantry, new tactics, this idea, different strategies of artillery and infantry or whatever, try to break the front line for 4 years. And the only reason it actually ended up working is because the Germans got too tired to fight anymore. It's like when you get so tired you can't do stuff. Germans were running out of guns and everything. So, once the Musargon offensive, the first battle on the Marne happens, the Germans have to deliver troops over to the Russian front. But while they were busy with France, Russia mobilized quicker than they thought, and so they were good in their invasion. So they go Austria-Hungary. You got this? They go, yeah, bro. Easy. And they advance up in the Russian Poland, and they won the first two battles. And then they just lost instantly. Terribly. They lost their entire army. And Germany has to put troops over there in order to save the Austro-Hungarians. So the Russians are continuing to advance, and they're advancing into German and East Prussia. And as they're going in there, they're going in there, and they get to this forest called Tannenberg. Now, Tannenberg was this heavily forested and marshed area in East Prussia. As they're advancing there, the Germans are freaking out. They're like, this isn't going good. We're forced on the defensive. We have to retreat. They're pushing towards Königsberg. So they get this General Hindenburg and Ludendorff. They go, you two, hold the front. They get up there, they win the battle, and they force the Russians back. It was like the Austro-Hungarians. They lost all their best army in the beginning, and they got forced back. Since that, it was a total downhill with constant getting pushed back and onto the defensive. They lost Poland. They lost all their territory over the next few years to lots of battles. The only other successful offensive they would have would be the Brusilov Offensive. And even then, the gains weren't permanent, but it was a pretty good strat. That's why Brusilov became a Russian hero for one success. For probably the most successful offensive of the First World War, led by the Russians. Their only successful offensive of the First World War. So, that's 1914. The trenches start, and then, of course, there's the winter truce, Christmas truce. That didn't happen again, because generals don't want people fraternizing with the enemy. After that, whenever they try to do that again, they would just shoot each other, because, I don't know, war. It was war. So, what happens next is 1915 rolls around, and they keep doing trench work, except this time, there's a couple battles in Belgium. With the British, there was this village in Belgium, this tiny village called Ypres, and the Germans broke through that village. They would be on the offensive, and they had the upper hand there. The British were there was like a cliff, sorry, not a cliff, like this huge hill, right? And they had the hill, so they had the height advantage. They could shoot down on the British, and three huge battles of attrition were fought there, with from the third one being almost for no gain, with lots of casualties. It's also where mustard gas and poison gas and chemical weapons were used for the first and only time in a major war, because no one liked that. Fun fact, the Germans didn't use it first. It was actually the French, but no one remembers that, just because the Germans were supposedly the bad guys. So what happens next is of all these battles of attrition, poison gas is used. People start using airplanes. At this point, some of the German colonies had fallen, with only really East Africa, German East Africa, and German Southwest Africa still maintaining with their strong military garrisons. With, of course, German East Africa still being really strong, but Southwest Africa starting to fall to still a small garrison. The only reason German East Africa would survive through the entire war is because they had a master of essentially guerrilla warfare. It was called bush warfare. At least that's the guerrilla warfare in Africa is called. Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck never lost a battle in his life and constantly led the British on like a cat and mouse chase, defeating them at every turn, tying down 100,000 South African and British troops, diverting that from the Western Front. So that's happening, and while 1915 rolls around, there's a couple more battles of attrition. It's not good. I can't name them off the top of my head. I haven't really studied up on it lately. I'm just going off what I can remember right now. I believe, yes, 1915, not much happened. Of course, there were a couple battles of attrition, offensives, poison gas was used for the first time. Planes really started to get used. More non-functional Russian offensives, and the Germans continuing to make gains. Let me see. The Ottoman Empire got involved in late 1914. And at this point, I believe the British had already naval invaded in Iraq and had lost at Kut. 1916 rolls around. This year is known for its battles of attrition, like actual battle of attrition. Besides the first battle of Ypres, that was 1915. 1916, there are I believe there are actually three major things that four major things we want to talk about. One, Battle of the Somme. It was the bloodiest day in British military history. Men walked shoulder to shoulder at a snail's pace over open ground into machine guns. It was an offensive that predictably failed drastically. Then there was the Battle of Verdun. Essentially, the Germans went, we're going to get rid of all the French manpower. We're going to have no troops left after this. They went and attacked the sector that had been attacked before on the front line, Verdun, which was kind of weak. So they go there, and the French have to pour in troops, because if they lose it, they lose the front line. They did not end up winning the battle, but not after hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides. It was terrible. Along with extreme close quarters, flamethrowers, knives, gunfighting, and everywhere. Then there was the Gallipoli Campaign, which was the British attempt to get the Ottoman Empire out of the war by invading the Gallipoli Peninsula and get them out of the war, open up another front line, and get supplies to Russia, because they're still undersupplied. Still making more guns than people thought they could ever do, but still not enough for their million-man army. What else was there? Alright, there was a lot of stuff that happened. Lots of important things. You already mentioned Verdun. Right, the Brusilov Offensive happened. Essentially, this one Russian general went, I'm going to try using only a small artillery barrage and only using the most powerful units we have as shock infantry, which worked successfully. This actually completely broke the Austro-Hungarians. Unlike everyone which they beat them, this completely broke their spirit. Essentially made them more of a burden, more like in Italy in World War II. It's completely broke them. And the Germans would then refer to it as being shackled to a corpse. So that was not good either. 1917 rolls around, a couple more battles of attrition. Tanks get rolled out for the first time. I believe 1916, I'm pretty sure it was 1917 though. There was the Battle of Jutland, only largest naval battle in history, only naval battle of World War I, between fleets actually meeting out. And 1918 rolls around, the Americans get involved because of things that, I've talked about before. No, I've not talked about before. Zimmerman telegram, Germany sent a telegram to Mexico going, If you join the war, we'll give you back your territory. Sinking convoy vessels and sinking a American civilian liner. So they got involved, and American troops that arrived and destroyed the weakened Germans at this time with the new fresh American troops and industry, essentially ending the war. It was terrible. Not good. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Thanks. Bye.